Welcome to the Stage Analysis Members Midweek video. It's Wednesday the 31st of August, just moving into the 1st of September here in the UK. So I'm going to do a few things on tonight's video. I want to start with a group focus on the renewable energy group, mainly the solar stocks, which has been our leading group for a little while now. I had a little bit of a flip-flop last week with the coal group retaking the top spot for the week, but it's now flipped back again, and the renewables is now back in the number one spot out of the 104 US industry groups. So TAN is the ETF that covers the group pretty well, and this I've marked up this chart over time and did a little bit of tidy up today. So we've now seen a little bit of consolidation since the stage 2 breakouts. This was our stage 2 breakout week back here. So since then we've been forming in a backup range, had a little bit of a run initially. A few of the strongest stocks in the group have run quite well. ENPH, First Solar and ARRY, for example, the leading three stocks in the group at the moment. So they've had good initial stage 2 advances, and I'll cover those off in a little bit and a few others. But you can see from the group ETF here, we've had 5 weeks since the breakout week. The volume has been diminishing on the consolidations. This is what we call a major backup range at the moment. So since the stage 2 breakout, we've moved into potentially the secondary entry point in the stage analysis method. The initial entry point in the stage analysis method is exactly at the breakout point, and then the secondary entry point is on the pullback into the breakout level, and then follow through move back out again. So it can be a tricky one to get. It's not on the exact pullback. There's different ways of approaching it. Lots of people use different methods. I prefer to use a lower time frame method and do actual stage analysis on a lower time frame, such as the 1 or the 2 hour chart. My preference is more the 2 hour chart. So I'll drop down, for example, down to a 2 hour chart like on here. So you can see a stage 2 breakout happened here. It was a gap up move. And then I'll use a chart like this and then try to do stage analysis on this or a lower time frame if this one doesn't have what it needs. But you can see at the moment it had an initial stage 2 run on the lower time frame, started to pull off a little bit, little stage 4 break, but then failed and started to move back up again. So we've now got a potential new level to watch for a reversal move back higher here around the 89 to 90 level. Again, like I said, you can drop down to even lower levels, 30 minutes even, start to do stage analysis on these lower time frames. But I prefer to use the 2 hour personally. So let's get this back to where we were. Bigger chart. Here we go. So as I said, let's start with a run through of what's been going on in the actual individual stocks. So if we flick through to the weekly charts, we've got ENPH is the leading group. So I've organised these in terms of relative strength to show them. So this had a strong stage 2 breakout attempts. These are weekly charts for this. You see the strong stage 2 breakout move there, and it's been forming a tight consolidation, much stronger than the individual ETF. Made obviously a new high breakout and has been forming right at the top of the range there. So it's a really strong showing on that. If you look at the daily chart, you see the original base structure tightened up, a little bit of VCP action in here. So you can see obviously the a deep initial move back at the start of the year started to tighten up, got this 3T type VCP pattern. Obviously not an ideal VCP pattern, not forming right at the top of the range, but that strong stage 2 breakout attempt on heavy volume on the I think it was around the 25th of July when all of them started to break out. ENPH was the first one out of the gates the day before the rest of them started moving on earnings results, and then the rest followed through on the news of the government intervention. Started to obviously pop all of those. But as I said, we've got some tight price action over the last month or so now, while the market's been declining. So relative strength wise, this has been really strong tennis ball underwater type action here. So we're looking for that strong follow through move, stage 2 breakout attempt to new highs, continuation type break in that. So go back. Next one, FSLR. You can see this had a huge move, breaking out into stage 2 after was in a stage 4 decline, and actually hadn't really got much back into stage 1 at the time when it actually busted out into stage 2. It was forming a base structure, but it wasn't obvious whether it was moving into stage 1 or not yet, as it hadn't yet started to move back above that 30-week moving average. So that gap up move sent it higher straight into stage 2. Really strong breakout move, and you can see compared to ENPH there, it's actually the follow-through weeks have been much stronger, continued on heavy volume for that whole time, and relative strength versus the S&P 500 has been exceptional. So this potentially over the last 4 or 5 weeks has been leading of the two there. So if we look at the daily chart on this, you can see that strong relative strength there on the daily chart. Heavy volume on the breakout days, and then lighter volume in this little consolidation it had in here. So showing really good price action, follow through move, and then the consolidation that it had again, volume tightened up again, and then we've had further follow through. So this one definitely one of the leaders of the group. It's already quite far out from that base structure. So from the original break there, it's already 55% higher. Let's get back to ENPH here. I think there's much. Yeah, it's only 38% higher from to the low to the high, the breakout to the high there. So First Solar potentially leading at the moment in terms of percentage moves, and obviously making new highs as well. Another strong one from the group to consider at the moment is ARRY. So this is a much younger one, only IPO'd back in 2020, had a big stage 4 decline for a good 2 years, and started to form this inverse head and shoulders type bottom on this one. So you can see the pattern that formed. Stage 2 breakout attempt again, same day or same week as the others started to move out. I had a strong initial 3-week move on some heavier volume, but not exceptional volume there, more than the four-week average, but not really more than 2 times average, just a little bit less there, but has been showing some tight action for the last 3 weeks now and consolidating. So this one is looking potentially strong here, holding above that 21-day moving average here on the daily chart. You can see the volume has been diminishing. It's expanded a little bit the last 2 days, but it was a little bit of a demand tail in the bottom of today's action at the 21-day moving average. Again, let's have a look at the percentage move since the break. So 72%. So it's had a really, really strong move and consolidating tight action there. So we look at the 3 ATR candles. It's just below the 1 ATR level. So looking for a move above this 23 level on some strong volume. So we'd want to see more than 3 times the average volume if we go for a continuation breakout on this, ideally, but not a necessary requirement, as obviously it's just a continuation breakout. We only look for 3 times volume on the daily breakout, which, as you can see on this one, we definitely had on that. Average volume was around this level in here, so it was 4 or 5 times the average daily on that one. CSIQ also looking strong since the stage 2 breakout. So broke out. It's a little bit of a slower stage 2 breakout on this one. You could potentially say it broke out a little bit earlier. It still had resistance, but followed through strongly for the same amount of time as the others. Had a little bit of a consolidation week there on heavy volume. Shook out a bit and tightened up a bit again. So just have a look at this one on the daily. Actually, I think I've got already. You can see the range marked on this then better. So again, let's look at what this has moved. 25%, so not as strong as some of the others there. A little bit more choppy. So the price action's not as good in this one, but it is showing still some good relative strength here. See the relative strength line since the breakout move there back on the late July time. So MAXN, another one from the group that's looking really strong at the moment. Another young stock IPO'd in 2020. So you can see again, same stage 2 breakout move, had a 3-week move, pulled into the backup and has followed back through. So it's through the 2 initial stage 2 entry points. So we'd be looking for a continuation move now following those. So we drop down to actually again, if we go to I think I've already got this one out. You can see the stage 2 breakout there. So it moved 50% initially. Got a little bit of tightening action going on here. It was quite a strong pullback in this one. Reversal moves. So it came into the backup entry point, back through that 21-day moving average and tightening up. So looking for a continuation move here. Again, you'd want to see some strong relative volume on a continuation on this one. Let's go. Just have a look through a couple others from the overall group. SHLS, so this is looking similar to MX. What's that one called? MAXN. So again, a young one, but this one's got a lot more overhead resistance from that initial IPO range. So it was forming an initial IPO base structure, and then started to decline into stage 4. It's formed this stage 1 base structure now, broken out into stage 2 around this area here. See through the resistance, so showing some good strength. Volume's not very dramatic on this one, but relative strength is above the 0 line, which is just starting to flatten out now, potentially starting to turn up. So that's another one to consider. In the group, SPWR still potentially lagging a little bit here. You can see the base structure that's been developing. Tempted to potentially, could argue it broke out into stage 2 earlier here as the 30-week started to turn up and the 10-week was above. Obviously, it had resistance and major resistance above and hasn't made as much progress there. So looking for a continuation break on this one, on some stronger relative volume if it does. SUNW, so again, you could argue it broke out from a minor brace structure down here, broader structure it hasn't yet cleared, so potentially an early stage 2 again, but it's a little bit more of a technical one and a small name. So let's look at this on a daily. You can see it moved above the 200-day moving average there and followed through. So potentially you could relabel this pivot as a higher stage 1 range. See, it did come out of this lower base structure in here, but it was pretty tight in there. So you'd be looking for a move up and out of here. So you've got some near-term pivots on this one to consider as well. Plug, not one of the solars. This is one of the hydrogen cells. So this is tightening up, similar kind of price action, looking for a follow-through move, potential stage 2 breakout attempt. Again, you'd want to see strong relative volume if it does. TPIC, not sure what this one does, but you can see the lower base structure that it's broken out of into early stage 2. So had a strong initial move, pulled into and currently in the backup range. So look for a continuation break higher with some increasing volume if it does, and ideally continuing increasing volume as it then follows through to potentially out to new highs. Run, so this one again potentially in early stage 2 maybe, as the moving averages started to turn up but hadn't yet cleared old resistance there, so which was quite near term. We've also got relative strength. We've got the bottom of the older range back here, so this one's not really clearly into stage 2 yet. You could still argue it's in late stage 1. So looking for a strong breakout move on some heavier volume. You can see volume has been diminishing as it's tightened up in here, so it's a good sign, and had obviously more than 2 times the average volume on that week there. So whether it's in late stage 1 or early stage 2 doesn't really matter. It's just that this one's got more resistance to deal with, and its relative strength is not as strong as we see in some of the others. So again, we go further down, Nova, similar sort of move there. Again, relative strength is not quite there, and it's got a little bit more overhead than some of the others. And JKS, a bit more sideways range in this one. So down into the weaker ones down here. So I think you would leave the rest of these alone at the moment. Okay, I think that will do for that. Let's move on to the next part of the video. So something I want to talk about today is a little project I've been working on this week, which is a way to have a visual way to automate the stages in Tradingview, potentially